Hello, and great that you are listening for this podcast from HELL episode, which is a double episode actually. I interviewed Richard Gregory, who is Artistic Director of Quarantine in England. Quarantine was involved in the process of Moving Borders, which is a European project festival in 7 European cities, including Dresden. In the German part of this episode, I talked to Katja, Heiser and Mustafa, Ahaikh, Hasan, who are 2 local agents for the Dresden ARK. If you're interested in that, then listen to the English episode and then just go over to the German one. It's definitely worth it. And now have fun listening this one. So, hello and welcome, Richard. I'm happy we can talk today. Firstly, I would like you to introduce yourself to the audience. So maybe you can say who and where you are right now.
I'm Richard Gregory. I'm a co-artistic director of Quarantine, who are based in Manchester. And right now, I'm in my kitchen, and I live about halfway between Manchester and Leeds in the north of England.
Thank you. I would just start right into my questions and would like to know what Moving Borders is and what is ARK.
So, Moving Borders is a collaboration between 7 European theatres, 6 theatres and 1 festival, and they are based in, right, I'll try and list them all. They are based in Athens, Strasbourg, Porto, Utrecht. I'm going to leave the German ones to last. Warsaw, Mulheim, and Dresden. That's 7, isn't it? Yeah, and so that's Moving Borders. It's a project that's funded by Creative Europe. So a collaboration between these various partners to really create projects in each city where the project takes place that looks at the notion of borders within cities, within those urban environments, and ARK, which was our response, Quarantine's response to that provocation. ARK is really a project that I guess over the last almost 18 months, maybe more, we've been working on to try and respond to this question about borders in cities. What form do borders make? And we were approached by one of the partners to submit a proposal for a project, and my colleague and collaborator Kate Daly came up with the idea of each city creating an ARK. So I guess in English, the word is kind of in some ways ambiguous. It can take on various meanings. If it's spelt ARK, then it refers to Noah's Ark in the Bible. It also exists in the Quran, which is the boat that where Noah took 2 of every species to save them from the flood. Sadly, quite an apt image at this moment in time. And it also, if you spell it differently, if you spell it ARC, it's the connection between 2 points. We made a proposal that each city should either physically or metaphorically create an ARK, a place where people might gather, where people might meet, who might not normally spend time together, who might not normally encounter each other, as a way of crossing or removing borders within the cities that we're working in.
Nice. For the part in Dresden, I can tell that the gathering worked. I visited the festival a week ago, and yeah, it was a great gathering, especially because we haven't met for a long time now during the pandemic. So you already talked about the borders and gathering between people, but yeah, so in your point of view, what are the ideas or aims of ARK, and why did you develop this project, and how does it relate to the ideas of borders? So I guess you mean the borders in cities, but according to Brexit and so on, borders get a new role in our world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think, when we began the project, it was pre-pandemic. It was also pre-Brexit. And so initially our focus was on the borders that we perceive as existing within cities, and obviously those vary from context to context, from city to city, and borders can take many different forms. They might be a geographical border, the border created by a river, or a particular territory, particular area of a city. Borders can, of course, be economic and social. But what's happened during the life of the project, with the arrival of the pandemic, and for us here in the UK with the imposition of Brexit, borders around fluidity, around the free movement of people, have really, I think, taken a very powerful place in the project, and in what it's concerned with. Certainly for us, and I think that the project has aimed to try to investigate the specific existence of particular borders in each of the cities, which vary, and find ways in which those borders might be crossed or reduced or even removed, if only temporarily, through the action of the project.
I really liked, I don't know if you, of course, I guess you know about these books which travel to each city. There was one question, I guess it was Porto. And today, when I interviewed the local agents, I asked them this question because I liked it that much. It was kind of, oh, wait, I have to look for it. Where does not visible borders go through the city? And there were like some great answers in this book. Maybe you have like an answer for your hometown. Is it Manchester or?
I'd probably answer on behalf of Manchester. Where are the invisible borders in the city?
Yeah.
So Manchester is a rapidly changing city. It's changed enormously in the last decade, and is now, I guess, you'd describe it as a kind of economic boom town. So Manchester has very visibly changed its identity and changed the way that it functions just in the last 10 to 15 years. So when we set our company up, Quarantine, we lived right in the city centre, and at that point, when we first lived there were about 500 people living in the city centre. Now there's space for something like 30,000 people, mostly in very shiny tower blocks. And so I think one of the borders, and perhaps it's a lie to say that it's invisible, one of the borders in the city of Manchester is very much one of economics and of class. Mm-hmm. Class is inescapably one of the issues in British society that fails to disappear. So that perhaps we pretend that it's an invisible border, but actually when we're confronted by the very visible differences in wealth between different parts of the population, it's very clear what the borders are within that urban environment.
So you already talked about the cities which are joining. What shape are their arcs taking?
The wonderful thing about our involvement in the project, although it's been frustratingly and sadly hindered by our inability to visit any of the cities. So one of the principles of the project at the outset was that we would be present for periods of time in each city, and because of the pandemic, we've not been able to. We've not yet visited any of the cities. So all of our work and all of our relationships with the local agents have taken place online. We're friends of Zoom. But the wonderful thing is that the arcs have taken on such different forms, and although they've all responded to our original proposal, and we've worked with the local agents to try and help to curate a meaningful arc in each place. I think one of the great powers of the project is the distinctiveness of each version.
Thank you. Maybe you can just give a little summarize how you are connected to all these cities and how you got, like, what Quarantine's place in this project is. So what is your actual task?
Yeah, I think we've had to shift it really, um, partly early on, a realization that if we wanted to make something that genuinely was rooted in each city, then we needed to offer a real sense of agency for those local agents, local artists in each city to invent their own response to our proposal. Because I think initially we'd felt that we might make something that could, in fact, kind of travel to each city, but it was clear early on that wasn't the most appropriate way to work in this project. And actually, as the pandemic arrived, that proved to be a really important decision, because it was impossible for us to travel to each city. And so our role shifted from being one that might have been perhaps more kind of hands-on creative in each place, to one that was more curatorial. So trying to find ways with each partner of having dialogue with them about the nature of the project and their ideas, and helping to kind of support and question those ideas, and then equally to try to act as a kind of conduit or a connection between all of the arcs, so that there was we tried to offer some sense to each of them about what was happening in other places, so that there's a kind of connective tissue, if you like, between all of the arcs. So although they have the distinctive identity, there is something quite strong that links them all, and we hope that will emerge through into the final gathering in Utrecht.
Thank you, Richard. Feel free to say something if you want to give some last words for this little podcast episode. Otherwise, I would like to thank you really much that you spent your time on this.
I think the only thing I would say is that despite the challenges and the restrictions created by a wicked combination of unexpected global pandemic and an expected unfortunate thing in my mind of Brexit, one of the great strengths has been the pleasure in making relationships with people in each city, even though most of them we've never actually met face to face. I've personally felt really enriched by some of the conversations that we've had, and very excited by and proud of the work that people have been making in creating their arcs.